Yay.
Yay, got it.
So thank you so much, Graham, for doing this with me. I've been waiting for us to have this conversation. So just
Yes, me too.
Whoever is going to view our recording. So I just want you to introduce yourself.
Thank you. Well, yes, this is crazy. I don't know what to speak about now. Yeah, this world that we're going to be talking about is really a sort of second career for me, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. I live in Canada, and I have 2 children, and I really don't know what else to say. I facilitate lots of circles, and so that's about it really for the moment.
Great. All right, Graham. So I'm Rasha, and as you know, and then I run an organization called Empathy Matters Private Limited, as the flagship initiative of which is the Empathy University. And Graham is a huge part of the work that we do at the Empathy University. In fact, you lead our, 2 of our really important social initiatives, and one of them is the Brainstorming Center, and also the, Empathy Matters Conversations, both of which happen on Tuesdays. And so Graham is the one who heads and leads these programs. So he's also one of my closest friends and maybe one of my favorite people. So in all those respects, I'm just so happy to be having this conversation with you. So
thank you so much, Rasha. And I'm very, very happy to be here, as always.
As always.
Yeah. So how do you want to go? How do you want to start?
All right. So maybe I was thinking we recently had a lot of, during one of our Tuesday circles, we did have discussions around a very important topic, which I feel anyone who's watching this will value. And that's, we were discussing difficult conversations, right? What are the sort of conversations that we really struggle to have, and why are those conversations so hard for us? And what in our little experiences have we done in order to overcome our fear of these conversations and whatnot. So I thought that would be a good place to start, and let's just see where this goes.
It's a lovely topic, and I feel not only do we have difficult conversations, but we also have difficulty with what goes on inside ourselves. How do we approach these conversations? And we also may not have an idea as to, we may not be confident about dealing with these things ourselves. We may not know how to express some of these things. And so it's not only a difficulty in wondering how the other person will react, but it's knowing how we can cope with the difficult conversation.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so for me, when it comes to difficult conversations, maybe I'll just begin by saying that, one of the most, there are different categories of conversations that I would say are very, very difficult for me, right? And I can just begin with one of them. And that's when, I really have to speak up about my feelings and needs with clarity to other people, right?
Yes.
It's possibly because I'm scared that, being
Yes.
upfront about my thoughts and feelings, especially my needs, may not be well received. And if at all they don't, if at all, in this process, my imperfections may just come into the picture, right? And what if they stop giving me the value that they used to give, like the person I'm having the interaction with, right? So all these sort of things, come up for me.
Yes.
When I need to have difficult conversations.
And you're touching on a very important aspect of what makes it difficult for us, let alone how the conversation is received by the other person. And that is that in our cultures, and I sense there's not that much difference between a Caucasian culture and an Indian culture, And that is that we are not taught to understand our own feelings and understand our own needs and be able to clearly express them. And so you're really talking about three things there, you know? And that's quite a challenge.
Yeah, yeah, very true. I mean, you're right. One of the reasons why it's so scary to kind of, very explicitly talk about my needs or feelings is because many a times I'm not clear on what those needs are, right?
Yes.
What those feelings are. Yeah, yeah. And so then what happens is I just end up speaking about my things in the wrong way, right?
Yes.
And we receive the way it should be, and then it's go really wrong from there, right? So very true. Like, have you ever had such experiences?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm going through one at the moment. For example, I've spent the last couple of months, but I've been focusing certainly in the last 3-4 weeks in buying a condominium in Edmonton.
All right.
Which is the other side of Canada. And so everything's been up in the air. Everything is dependent on everything else. I can't pack my stuff and ship it because I need it. And there's all sorts of timing aspects. I've got to balance my money. I've got to find support for this and that and the other. And I never know which comes first. And I can't make a decision until other things are in place. So when my world is kind of undefined and insecure and what am I thinking about? Undefined. When it's all up in the air and I don't really know what's going on, there's unknown but very fundamental insecurities. Then I'm useless. I can't make any decisions. I end up procrastinating. I can't formulate my needs. And as a result, you said you express things wrongly. But for example, I might be uptight. And so I don't respond appropriately to people. I might get easily frustrated and maybe show my anger and irritation. And it's nothing to do with them. It's because of all the underlying circumstances that I'm not able to put my finger on.
Yeah. Oh, that's so real. That's so real. I mean,
so real. Yes.
Yeah, the number of conversations I've had, like in a similar sort of way, because, something is happening around me, and, because I'm not able to comprehend my own state of mind or my own internal state at a point in time, sometimes I end up, like not just having conversations in the wrong way, like behaving in the wrong way, but I also end up not like cutting people out as well sometimes, just as a way of avoiding conversations. And the word procrastination that you mentioned just struck a chord with me. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you mentioned an important word there. Avoid. We avoid our difficult conversations simply because we don't know how to start the conversation.
Exactly. And, we're so scared about the discomfort that's going to, come with having that conversation, right? And, lots of such examples, even for me, where, this is one of those examples that I did mention, like, during our previous, Empathy Matters conversations. And that's about sometimes let's say I'm just not in the right mindset to have a discussion, right? And then someone's kind of trying to reach me, especially if it's not someone who I'm very comfortable with or someone I feel very safe with. Then what happens is, if it's someone outside of my comfort zone, then I could always say a clear no, or I could always mention that, I'm just not in the right mindset to speak right now. But instead of that, sometimes what ends up happening is I have to come up with excuses, right? I just create excuses which are half truths. so that, so it's just my way of convincing
Yes.
myself that, I'm not really lying, but then I'm also, instead of just straightforwardly saying what needs to be said, I just create some sort of a scenario there. I mean, which
Yes.
is such unnecessary drama, right?
Yes.
So I'm sure a lot of people go through this, and we do that because we are not really sure of, how to kind of tackle that situation.
And if I can interrupt you there, so you're creating additional problems by giving half truths, and then you begin to feel guilty, and they know, the other person knows that you're giving excuses and telling half truths, and so things just get worse and worse and worse all the time.
Exactly. I mean, so that happens. And I also think, this has a lot to do with our cultural conditioning as well. Like, again, something that, was discussed earlier, where we grow up. I mean, while growing up, we're always, instead of, helping us accept ourselves as who we are, we are often taught that there is this ideal self, right? There is this ideal boy, this ideal girl, and that is how you need to behave. That is how, you need to portray yourself to the society or whoever is around you, so that they accept you, because otherwise you're not going to really be accepted. I mean, you're always the teacher's pet if you behave, in a certain fashion.
If you behave correctly,
Exactly. Same with parents. And so because of that, what ends up happening is we end up learning to kind of, mask and do all these like weird stuff, so that people just don't see who we authentically are. And I think even my issue with the calls, right, and the way I deal with them, maybe sometimes stem from there.
Oh, I'm sure these things go right back to our deepest childhood.
Yeah.
Because we need to be teacher's pet, basically. All of us.
Yeah. We're always looking for someone to kind of accept.
Validation and acceptance and belonging. Yeah. Can I pick up on a couple of threads that you said? I mean, the last words that you said were, we always need to belong, and we need that connection, we need that validation and things like that. We need support, basically. You also talked about needing to feel safe so that you don't have to give an excuse. Do you know what I mean? So it's almost like we're saying that if we can create safe spaces, not only for you, but you create it for me, then we can be authentic. Our conversations are so much easier to conduct. And the difficulty in the conversations just kind of disappears, really.
Yeah. Do you want to maybe, just maybe give some idea of how you've been doing this with our Tuesday circles, like what happens there and how these sort of, I mean, because we have a lot of very difficult conversations in our circles, right? And maybe just, your experiences with that process, and it'll be nice to hear that as well. Yeah.
The general process is, well, let's say we've not so much talk about the kind of chronological aspects of it, but the values that we try to follow. And one is that we start by making people feel welcome. And at all stages, we try to make people feel safe. And making them feel safe is not something that you do overtly. You can't say, oh, we're safe because we've locked the door or something crazy. This is all very psychological stuff. And so by being caring for the other person, showing an interest in them, allowing them to check in whichever way they want to, and accepting latecomers. We've seen this. And in the last group I was in, not this immediate one, but the one before, somebody came in an hour late. And we quite often get that because of the time changes, like in the change in the Northern Hemisphere to summertime. People would come in an hour late. but we were able to make them feel welcome.
Yeah.
And for me, when I'm late, I feel so awful. I feel really guilty, and it takes me a long time to settle down because of my sense of shame. But we actually make people feel at home so that they get rid of those feelings, and they quickly gel into the group. So those are the first things, is to make people feel welcome and to feel safe. And then what we do is we do a combination of things, like we have a topic and people are free to talk about whatever they want. So we're trying to remove constraints. And if somebody's really obsessed by something because there's really something strong going on inside them, then hey, let them be. Let them follow their
talk
own.
About whatever they want to talk about.
Exactly, yeah. But I'm thinking of two things that run in parallel. One is that our perspective on the world, which comes out of all of our little anxieties, our difficulties, you name it, they're all there. We're able to put it out safely into the group. And the practices that we have, which is that we select a listener and that listener reflects. So in other words, the listener is obliged, not with any compulsion or anything, but they are obliged to hear what is being said and reflect it as best they can do. Sorry for my phone bleeping. I'll just stop that happening again. And so we get a combination of people putting their perspective on the moment out into the space, and it being reflected, so the speaker feels heard. And we begin a really amazing little dynamic process here, because when people put out their perspective, then other people resonate with it in the group. And it motivates them. They modify what they're planning on sharing. And so things become way more spontaneous. And what you share affects the way I share. And the way what I share affects what somebody else shares. And so we begin to learn from each other. We get into stimulated by each other, and we learn from each other. So just to recap, we put our perspective out there and it's heard. Nothing's challenged, it's heard. And it stimulates other people. And then we begin to build this kind of trust, and we notice, particularly because, now I'm gabbling a bit, but we do these things in two halves. One is to put things out there and feel heard. And then we go through a process of actually just talking freely. And that's where we get over all those barriers of difficult conversations.
I agree. And so I'm also like, reflecting on how these have helped me in my real life as well. Right.
Okay.
So these aspects of, creating safety for other people, because I've seen that, because of the practice that we've been getting from our Tuesday circles, what that has done for me personally is that when I'm trying to have a conversation with someone, my priority has started to be to make them feel safe.
Nice.
Right? Yes. So even in our regular conversations, so, there is that awareness of the need for safety for the other person if they have to, tell us whatever they really feel like telling us, and if we want them to be authentic. So this is something that I've started to put into practice, right? The aspect of safety. And then, like you said, I think people generally are, for example, if I'm talking to someone, I'm pretty sure that the chances that I'm being more of myself with them, the chances that I'm comfortable speaking to them is all high if I really do feel heard. right? And so knowing that, these days I'm trying to hear people a lot more, like you said, right?
Yes.
Because when that happens, that's when conversations start going deeper. That's when,
Yes.
yeah, we start to feel
Yes.
more and more safe in conversations and whatnot.
Yes.
So yeah, these are very, very beautiful aspects, that we've picked up from
And
our regular
and
like work. Yeah.
yes. And so yes, these are really beautiful aspects, and it's that thing about being heard.
Yeah.
Uh, maybe also a little bit of being accepted and being
Yeah.
heard.
Yeah.
This really does. It's like flipping a coin. You suddenly you're flipping the whole situation from being a standoff to
Yeah.
being kind of open to what's going on,
Yeah.
and you change the atmosphere completely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm also like, wondering about these difficult one other kind of difficult conversations that I always struggle with, and that's boundary management. Any conversation where I need
Yes.
to kind of speak out about my boundaries clearly, right? Or any conversation where I have to say no, because I think it comes from like a lack of practice of having ever done that. Again, cultural sort of influences
A
where
lack
I
of
have,
practice for sure.
yeah,
Yes.
perfect. But on top of that, it's also the fear of, kind of losing or maybe offending the person that I'm speaking to. But what
Yes.
sometimes happens in this process of, not saying no, and in fact, just avoiding these conversations, is that a lot more damage ends up getting done because
Yes.
I haven't said no on time than
Yes.
had I kind of just said no at the right time. So so boundary management
Yes.
conversations are also some of, those very difficult
Yes.
conversations. Yeah. And just
And
curious
and
about, your thoughts on that. Yeah.
uh, yeah, I'm almost interrupting you now because I'm kind of getting quite excited by what you said.
Yeah.
And you said something about uh, not being familiar with how to do it or not knowing how to do it. But to me, managing your boundaries is a skill.
Yeah.
And it's something that we hone, like we sharpen this skill like any other skill. And in our cultures, we're not really taught to say no. We come out of our families, mummy and daddy are the bosses, and you're just a little person, and you don't know what's going on with you. But really, you're not a little person. You're an individual, but you're not taught to actually say no or say I need more of this or whatever. And so it's a big skill area. And if you don't have the confidence with your skills, then you're not going to broach the subject.
Yeah.
So we've got three levels. The top one is a difficult conversation. Underneath that is knowing that you're having the confidence in your skills, and the other one is being able to teach yourself the skills.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Yeah, very true. And it's again like, like everything, it all begins with self-awareness, right? And and knowing, like, that these are the issues that I'm currently facing. Like, I do have
yes.
an issue with boundary management. I do kind of, struggle to have conversations where maybe my imperfections just come to light. So, just this and awareness, a clarity on what sort of conversations and what aspects of it scare me and what the reasons possibly are behind it. I think that's the first step to kind of, getting
Okay.
and having
And
the
getting that clarity. And that we have an interesting circular situation here, because in a way, you can really only become clear about what's going on when you talk to somebody else.
exactly. Yeah.
We are amazingly dependent upon other people.
Yeah.
We're dependent upon them to understand who we are.
Very true. Oh, that's
Yeah.
that's such a powerful insight. Very true. I mean, just goes back to, the last conversation, I had with Avani, right? And
Yes.
communities and this tribe, like, mentality that we have and how much
Yes.
we depend on each other. So that's so well said. I agree. Yeah.
Yes.
And sometimes, yeah, it's during these conversations and experiences that we have with another individual that we then learn so much more about ourselves, and
Yes.
that's how we become
Yes.
more and more aware of where we stand in terms of a lot of things. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now you are touching on all those things that make me excited about our little circles.
Yeah.
Because in those circles, we all address difficult conversations,
Yeah.
difficult themes.
Yeah.
And we are, in a lot of ways, amongst strangers. We get half a dozen people come together in a breakout room, and we talk about these things.
Yeah.
And we experience that space of feeling safe.
Yeah.
We
do.
And we've experienced that space of feeling heard, and we're able to put all those little difficult to feel feelings and emotions and needs, we can actually freely discuss them.
Yeah.
And if we don't freely discuss them in that space, we've been able to recognize them. Oh, this is important to me. And so we learn, or we are learning when we attend these sessions, we're learning about ourselves, like you said.
Yeah.
We're learning new skills about creating safe spaces for other people. And the more we learn about ourselves, essentially the clearer we can be about stating our needs and feelings to other people.
Absolutely.
And hence our boundaries and the like.
Yeah. Very well said. Yeah. And being more clear in all these ways, it just helps our day-to-day lives, right? It just makes
Absolutely.
it so much easier. And I also adore the fact that, some days when something is not going on well, I have this tribe to come back to, right? On Tuesdays, where I just can come and just have these conversations. And one of the most another beautiful aspect of just being with each other and having each other to fall back on, like having a community with you, is the fact that sometimes I come to the community and I just share something like I kind of had this experience and I'm really struggling with dealing with it. Then what I've seen is, more than often, from the conversation that ensues and from whatever like everybody kind of shares, I always manage to find a solution, because from the experience of somebody else, right? They share that oh, this happened to me, and this is how I dealt with it. Or somebody else says of somebody else's experience which was very similar to mine, and then I'll be like, oh, that is such a beautiful way of handling it, and maybe I can kind of try to do that. So like you said, immense learning, right?
Immense learning.
Immense learning. And
you hold your thoughts there. You talked about if you're going through a difficult patch, you always know that a Tuesday you can sort this out. This is one of the things that I find. I have two instances in my week which act as anchor points or grounding, and I go into that session. It's either one of our Tuesday sessions or my friend on a Monday night. And I get this real grounding. And it's if I, and we don't have to be talking about my stuff. Sometimes he talks all the time, but nonetheless, I'm journeying with him. And I'm all the time thinking about where I'm at, and I'm thinking in all sorts of parallel ways, but it makes me feel at peace. It makes me feel that
the conversation is just not really about you, right? That's so beautiful. I mean, even though the conversation is mostly about
it doesn't have to be about me.
And
no, exactly. And so I feel grounded, and then of course, as the week goes on, I feel less and less grounded. And then Monday comes again, or I get grounded on Tuesday. So I'm happy that I have these two situations, and then I get ungrounded. But they are amazingly stabilizing. And these little groups, they're really quite isolated from what goes on in the week. It's not as if you and I meet each other in somewhere in your hometown in India and have a coffee or something. We don't do that, but we just meet kind of once a week, maybe in between like we're doing now. But that's all we need. Actually, we need more than that, but it's a very powerful grounding. That's what I'm talking about.
And it brings up, like, some things for me, and one of them is I'm just reminded of something that a friend said about how it is essential these days for us to kind of create situations where we kind of slow down and we have difficult conversations. Right.
Yes.
And this is one such situation. Our circles, or these communities are one such situations where, despite everything that's going on, we have our work life, we have, like, a lot of personal things happening, but then we kind of come for an hour or two to a community where we just, like, slow down and talk about our difficult conversations, and these sort of
and that is a magic word, slow down. And I didn't talk about that when I described some of the values, but really one of our main values, we may never think about this overtly, but it's slowing down. Just let that steam go, and feel the weight of your shoulders relaxing, and beautiful thought.
Yeah, Graham. So I think, as we conclude, I really wanted to pick your thoughts on what do you think, for anyone who's viewing, like, what this conversation that we're having, what would be some suggestions you give to anyone who is having a difficulty addressing or getting into difficult conversations? Like, for example, they have a hard conversation they need to have with someone, one of their partners, maybe a loved one. Maybe they have to have a difficult conversation with a manager at work, and they're really struggling as to, how do we really go ahead and have these conversations? So what would be some suggestions from your vast experience, like, that you would want to share with them?
This is actually a difficult question, and it would be nice if I could give you a one-word answer. But these things, I think of going up a circular staircase. If you're going up a building, you want to get up somewhere, achieving a difficult conversation, get to a result. You've got. And in terms of life skills, you need to keep going round and round in little steps, but you go up in little steps, you go through all sorts of learnings, a little bit at a time, and you go up. So there's no one real answer. But having said that, we need to have trust and faith in our feelings and our needs. And we are not taught to have trust and faith in these. And in the West here, we take medications. The moment our feelings come up, let's go and medicate, or we go to the doctor and say, I've got a problem with this feeling. But these things are very important. And we then end up in another situation where these feelings and needs only make sense when we are sharing them with other people. And that creates a chicken and egg situation. But feelings and needs are the most important thing. Maybe the third one is expressing them: feelings, needs, and expressing them, because that sets you off because if you're expressing them to somebody else and it's not received well, you then go back to the start and say, what's this about? Then you think about your feelings, then your needs, then your expression, and you try to talk to somebody else. And
lovely. I mean, so what you're saying is we need to have, like, a lot more awareness of what our, needs and feelings are.
Yes.
And also be able to express it to the right people
Well,
in safe
at
environments.
least start with expressing them.
Yeah, at least start with expressing them. Yeah.
So that begins a learning curve.
Yeah.
Once you start expressing it, the other person will respond,
Yeah.
and then you go back to your feelings, your needs, and express.
Yeah.
So you're revising the circle all the time.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. And something that I feel is also maybe sometimes one way of getting more clarity on our thoughts and feelings, like, which is something that I've been reading on. Like, there is this book called Letting Go, right? The Pathway to Surrender, written by David Hawkins. So that's something that I'm reading right now. And so one of the things they say in the book is about just sometimes just sitting there with your feeling, and just, if for example, I'm feeling, a lot of fear about something, then just, ask, like, why do I feel that fear? Like, what is that feeling? Where is that coming from? What is the need behind it? So getting to the root of it, which kind of, and just those reflections will kind of slowly help us, like, let go of these, sort of negative emotions that are really overcoming us. And it's a process that we need to kind of sit with, spend time with. So I think, before difficult conversations, it is important for us to kind of really slow down and spend time reflecting, connect with ourselves, and have these conversations, or go into these conversations when we feel we are ready for them. Right. And then, yeah.
And so what you asked me to say, I would add yours in parallel. And
Yeah.
that is, we need to reflect on our feelings. We need to sit with them. We
Yeah.
need to slow down. And if you like, have those difficult conversations with ourselves.
Yeah.
So
Lovely. So what you just said is, like, to have, if we are willing to have those difficult conversations with us first, then it's going to be easier to kind of have these difficult conversations with.
Oh, absolutely.
Excellent. I think that's a wonderful way to kind of close our discussion. But Graham, thank you so much. This has been very, very lovely.
And it's always my pleasure to be with you, Rasha. And I thank you so much for all the respect and honor that you give me. And I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Graham.
Pleasure. And I wish you a lovely day. Thank you.
Hold on, I'll just,